Mary Jo's calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Mary Jo, thank you for calling. You're on the air.
I'm just calling to find out if anyone has any idea how to get this to stop. Mm-hmm. I remember the Bay of Pigs. I remember Vietnam. And this is the most frightened I have been. And people my age are sitting there going, I can't believe I've lived this long and I'm having to look at this now. And I'm just wondering if there is anything anyone can imagine that would get the president to stop.
Well, I mean, you've got the Secretary of Defense at his right hand there talking diplomacy all the time. But Joseph Circione, what about the brakes here?
There's two things. First of all, if you're frightened by what you're hearing, you're reacting appropriately. This is not a game. We're not kidding around here. This is, I think, in some ways much more serious than people realize. We're distracted by so much else that's going on. There are two paths here. One is just to stop pouring gasoline on the fire. Stop it, Mr. President. Don't provoke him anymore. Don't do this kind of talk. Back off. Just be quiet. No tweets, no insults. Pull it back a little bit. Second, get close to China and South Korea, our two closest sort of allies or at least partners in this issue, and start to explore ways to have a dialogue with North Korea at a minimum to reduce the possibility of miscalculation, which is what our biggest worry is, and to see if possible that we could start some kind of negotiations that could get a freeze in the North Korean program in exchange for a freeze in some of our military exercises. But there's a whole other path, and members of Congress are now starting to discuss that. We should talk about restricting the ability of the President of the United States to unilaterally launch a nuclear war, to make the most fateful decision we can make in government, and that is now done completely undemocratically. So you have members like Ed Markey and Ted Lieu who have introduced legislation to prevent the president from launching a nuclear weapon first without consulting Congress. You have Senator Bob Corker at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, a Republican, talking about holding hearings on the president's ability. You have people who are about to introduce legislation later this week prohibiting the president from going to war in North Korea without, guess what, a congressional authorization of war. The Congress should do what the Constitution demands it to do, take a role in whether we go to war or not. This is not something to be left up to a nuclear monarch.